This is the first in a series of videos in which we will be looking at microcontrollers, in this case the Arduino. The Arduino is one of many types of microcontrollers out there. It is not a computer, it is something that you upload a program to and it will run that sketch, but it is different than a computer itself. I wanted to take some time to look through the actual hardware of the Arduino before we get into programming it. To begin with, you'll notice that the board has pins along both sides here. So these come in two different forms. One is analog and the other is digital. And the difference between analog and digital, digital works more like a switch. It's either high or it's low or on and off. Analog works similar to how a dial might, in that it can be fully on, it can be fully off, and anywhere in between those two. If you look at this side of the board, you'll have numbers 0 to 13. 0 and 1 are typically used for serial communication, so seldom do you use it in using sensors or the outputs of these pins. But you'll be using numbers 2 to 13 on this particular board. Other boards go all the way up to 54, and so different boards have different numbers of pins. This particular board has 13 digital pins. These can be programmed to be either input or output. This side is the digital side. You'll also notice that on the other end here is the analog. From this point on to the end here, you'll have A0 to A5. These are the analog pins, and so they can also be used as both input and output pins. Just wanted to point out one other thing with the digital pins on this side. Several of them on this particular board, number 3, 5, 6, 10, and 11, have PWM next to it. PWM is an acronym for pulse wave modification. And these pins can also be used, similar to the analog pins, to send out a wave signal. The wave signal is a square wave, but can be used in a similar way to a dial or an analog, in that it is turning things on and off at different frequencies, and so it can actually kind of control how much power is being put out through that. So these become very useful in certain applications. A few other things on the board. You have ground pins. In this case, you have 2 on that side, 1 on that side. You have V-in. So V-in is something that can be used to provide power to the board. It could take anywhere from 5 volts to 12 volts on this particular board. There's also 5V, which stands for 5 volt. This can also be used with a regulated power supply, so you can supply 5 volts to the board through this pin. You can also use this pin to provide power out to certain components. Maybe it's a relay, or you can use it to power a sensor, something like that. Further down you have the reset pin. This pin, if it is connected to the ground, will reset the entire program and it'll have it start again. There's a second reset button right here. If that is pressed, it also will reset the program. 2 other things on this board. We have the barrel jack. This is another way to supply power to the Arduino. It can take 5 volt to 12 volt as well. And lastly, you have this USB port. This is used to connect the Arduino to your computer so you can upload sketches. You can also monitor where the program is at through this as well. So that kind of covers the basics of the hardware. And in the next video, we'll get into some of the programming of this.